Hey guys, Chris here, Now Hacks. I wanted to talk a little bit about PDIs today. This is going to be a quick one. I wanted to get it out. I apologize, I'm actually at a convention this weekend, but I wanted to talk about this because I've seen a couple of posts about this recently. So, when using a PDI or a Learn instance from ServiceNow, first off, there's a couple of things that I just want to call out. They're an amazing learning utility. You can do whatever you need to on them, play around, develop new stuff if you really want to, things like that. But keep in mind that just signing up on developer.servicenow.com or using the learning site, even if you've paid for a course where that learning instance comes along with it, keep in mind that you don't technically have a contract with ServiceNow, and so they own that instance. So the terms of service, I went through it. It's vague, let's put it that way, and it's difficult to point out or understand the intellectual property that is on that instance or not. So just keep that in mind. ServiceNow does have a build partner program that is kind of designed for anyone who wants to custom build something on the ServiceNow platform. You do then have a contract, you're given vendor instances, things like that. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying don't do it necessarily. It is a great resource to be able to get some initial development done and whatnot, but just be careful and maybe go through the terms of service yourself just to make sure you're comfortable with it. That aside, my main point today was I wanted to touch on the fact of when you're developing on a PDI, they are transient by nature, right? And there's some frustration out in the ecosystem that PDI might be reclaimed at any time. Sometimes they just stop working. I've had that happen. And so because of the fact that you're not paying for it, ServiceNow doesn't necessarily they don't even give true support for it, right? So what I wanted to talk about today was a way that you could ensure that if you're developing something or you're working on something or playing around with something that you want to ensure that you can keep down the road, you can easily export that. And now I don't want to intimidate too many people. We are going to be using a command line interface, a CLI or a terminal a little bit here, but all we're going to be doing is exporting our app and storing it in Git. And what that'll allow you to do is move your source of truth from ServiceNow, from an instance in ServiceNow into a Git repository. And when we talk about a source of truth, a lot of people think about like data and things like that. It's basically what defines the originator or the true source for whatever I'm working with. In this case, it's our application metadata, our artifacts, our code, things like that. And I'll tell you right now, I've completely moved away from any even day-to-day operations developing on ServiceNow outside of a PDI to using this methodology because of the fact that it is much more robust. It allows me to track changes that happen within the app, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, what I'm doing today, I just want to show you how you can export your app, store it in Git, pull it back from Git, and throw it back in an instance. So that way, whether or not you have a PDI, you can just spin up a new one and you're off to the races. So right now we're looking at one of my PDIs. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a new scoped application. I usually do this through the list view and I create one from scratch, just a simple generic application. You can create it however you want. Just as a heads up, we are using the ServiceNow SDK CLI today. It does now support globally scoped applications to some extent, but this should work with a globally scoped app as well. So I'm just going to say test export app, and we'll create that. Okay, so I'm creating a regular scoped application, and then I'll edit it. It's just going to open the original, or actually the new studio builder here. But I could do whatever I need to in here. I've got some other ones in here as well. Um, I'm not, let me see here. Should I create something inside here? Create file. Yeah, I want it in there. Let's just add a table, just so that there's some kind of metadata within my application to store. We're just going to create a blank table and create a new table. My data, we'll do both of these. And continue, add a new role, test role, new stuff, and it can do everything on my new table. So we'll go ahead and create that. Now, From here, I'm going to end up going back to the normal user interface because we're going to use, let me see here. I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to go back to our list of applications. And you can, there's a bunch of ways to get to this list. But basically, these are all my scoped applications. And I'm going to sort by updated because my new one should be here. There's our new one. So now this is where we're going to use the CLI a little bit. Now I'm not going to go through setting up the CLI and all of that stuff in this video because I want to focus on exporting it. I've got a video I put out last year about setting up the CLI. There's lots of information out there. If you do feel that you want me to do a quick one on that, then feel free to post some feedback on here. But I'm going to assume that you already have your authentication set up using the CLI, that you've installed either the CLI globally or you've installed it, or you can do what we're about to do because you actually don't actually have to have the CLI installed to be able to use it. So I'm going to copy the SysID because that's what we need in order to export our app. So now let's say I'm done for the day. I want to make sure that my app is stored somewhere. I'm in Cursor here. You can use VS Code. You can use the plain terminal. It's really up to you. But I'm going to go new terminal, and it's going to open this up. Now I'm in my new folder here that I opened up already. You would want to choose a folder, but I'm going to do npx at ServiceNow. npx is basically the node package executor. And so this is why you don't have to have the Now SDK actually installed globally if you don't want to. You can use npx. And then you use the package name. And I'm going to do init dash dash from. And just put in that dash dash auth. And then I apologize, I forgot what I named this one. So I'm going to do npx at ServiceNow SDK auth dash dash list. And what this should do is tell me the instances that I've configured in the ServiceNow SDK authentication. Sometimes it takes a minute, especially because I'm doing this remotely with npx because I don't actually have it installed. So basically, most likely what it's doing right now is it's downloading that package, making sure it's got all the dependents, basically like transiently installing that globally, but it's not actually installing it globally. Okay, got that set up. So now SDK init. So I did install it globally. I'm on a really bad internet connection, so I apologize. From and then dash dash. So that's my instance name. I'm going to go back over here and get my SysID again because I had to do that. There. Now what this is going to do is it's going to initialize a new project on my local machine. Don't worry too much about that. The biggest thing here is it'll do a lot of the heavy lifting for me. It's going to pull down that application from ServiceNow to my local machine. It's going to set up a get ignore to make sure that it only gets what it needs. It wants me to give it a name. I'm just going to say test app. Again, you don't need to worry too much about this yet. Give it some type of a name. Now you can see in my left hand here, I've got this stuff. I've got my metadata. You can see here, this dictionary, this DB object, all of that stuff is here. So now, if I go get status, there's nothing. I haven't actually initialized the Git repository yet. So I'm going to come over here to my GitHub, and I'm going to say test PDI dev, and I'm going to make this one private for myself. So this is the nice thing is you can make it private on GitHub. You can create that repository. And this is the really nice thing about using just GitHub and making this easy on yourself. Switch to you can set up SSH if you want. You can switch to HTTPS. And then literally all I need to do is copy all of this stuff. Okay. Now it's probably going to ask you if this is the first time you've used Git or anything like that to set up your credentials and all that. I've already done that. And so it didn't ask me that now. So I have git status. The only thing that it committed was that README that it created. So now I'm going to do git add star, git status. Now all of the stuff that's a part of my app is in there. I do want those last files, so I'm going to get .add .eslint.rc, git add .git ignore, and the .vs code is kind of up to you. I like it just because it stores all my settings and whatnot. Especially if you're just the only one working on the app. So now git status, all that's there. Git commit -m, my initial app commit, if I could spell. end quote, and then git push. So now I have everything in Git for my app. And so now if my PDI goes away, that's okay. I can spin up a new PDI, I can reset it. I'm not going to, but what I am going to do is, in this case, I'm going to delete my app. So let's close this one out. Let's say if somehow your app gets deleted or you do a clone down or something like that. This is why I'm telling you, like, the source of truth changes and your process could change a little bit. So your daily activities, you're going to go through and update your app and whatnot. And then basically you're going to then run that transform. And so actually, you know what? I'll show you that first. So now my app was pulled down and all of that. Now what do I do next? Well, first off, you do need to do a deploy first because right now the app in the ServiceNow instance hasn't been changed at all. There is one kind of reference field that needs to be set in order for you to do it just a transform in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and do an npmi. What that's going to do is it's an npm install. It just sets up and downloads all of the packages that are needed to build this project. It's kind of required whenever you're doing this type of stuff. Now, again, I know the CLI is not for everybody, but if you're doing development on ServiceNow, doing new development, then it's probably not a bad idea to get at least a little understanding of these types of processes. Now I can do npm run build. And what this is going to do is it's going to generate a zip file for me, which then can be uploaded. And then I do npm run deploy and dash dash auth, and that is going to be my instance name. So if you only have one instance that you're working with and that's the only thing you set up for now auth, you don't really need to worry about this, but I just do it just in case. So now it's going to deploy that. There's no changes to my app other than one thing. There's a package JSON, this right here, that is going to get uploaded to the instance and it gets set on the sys app record. That's what's going to allow me in the future to do a transform. So now that that's set, if I come in here and if I go back, you see how this is a sys app record here? Sys app list. Those are my custom apps. The one I just created is my test export app. Now if I open this up and I look at JSON, it has a reference to that file. This is kind of what tells the instance that this is being managed or has been uploaded by an external entity, and that makes it so that I don't have to do that in it again. Otherwise, if I didn't do that and this wasn't set in the instance, when I did a Now SDK transform, which I'll show you in a moment, it wouldn't know what it's doing or what it's going against. So now let's go ahead and add a new column to our table. How about that? I'm just going to go straight to sysdb object, updated my data. Let's add a new column to this. And this is actually, this is kind of intrinsically showing you what kind of the process of developing using the SDK could look like as well. Because now I'm going to be very particular about the changes that I make. I'm going to add my new field, string, save that. Okay, it's there. I got an error, it looks like, that I need to maybe look at, but okay, it's not a big deal. All right. So now from here, if I want to be able to re-pull that down, I've already initialized the project, I've deployed the project and linked it using the package JSON. Now all I have to do is now SDK transform dash dash off. And what that's going to do is it's just going to bring down all of the changes for me. And the really cool thing about this that I love is that now I can do git status and say, okay, look, so my metadata has changed a little bit. I've got a new dictionary or a modified dictionary record. I've got my DB object has changed, things like that. Now, I'm not really using Fluent at all here. There is a Fluent generated file. We can take a look at that if you want. So data, sys dictionary. You don't really need to worry about that too much right now. That's not what I wanted to talk about here. All we're talking about here is the fact that, hey, I can export my app and I can deploy my app. And so now I just do git add star again, git status, all of that's added, git commit, added new field, git push. So now my Git repository is up to date. Now I can come in here and let's go back. I'll go into my custom app. I'm going to just delete it. Let's say my app got, or my instance got reset and I'm starting from scratch again. Now, this isn't true to form because there's going to be some garbage that gets left behind when you just delete an app like this sometimes. It's just metadata delete files, things like that. We're not going to get into that right now. Don't worry about that. Again, my goal right now is to show you if you are required to work on a PDI and play around on a PDI and you want to be able to store your apps. Now my app is gone. Let's look at this app. Okay, it's gone completely. And so it is as easy as, let's start from scratch. So let me close this out. File, new window. Let's clone from my repo. So now let's say I'm completely, I don't have it locally. I just have it in GitHub. I'm going to allow that. Hopefully this works. I don't remember the last time I set this up. Okay, so it's going to have to reset this up. Okay. Okay, so now I got that set up. And now we see here, test PDI dev1. That's the one we just created, right? So I'm going to pull that. I tend to go to a Git repository, a Git folder that I have. So I'm just going to do here, I'm going to do a new folder, test PDI app1, and then we'll select that. Now it's going to pull that, and then I'll open it. So it's as if, I just pulled it locally from down from Git. I've got a new PDI, let's say. So let's open up my terminal. If I have a new PDI again, I'm going to assume you already have the authentication set up. Now I'm just going to do an npmi. That's going to do again is it's going to do that install from the Node package manager to make sure that we have everything to actually run the build. You don't need to know too much about that at this point, though. Like all we're doing is using this as kind of this exportation device. And so then npm run build. Npm run deploy dash auth. And then my instance. And now it's going to go out and install that app back on this PDI, if it was, let's say, a new PDI or a new instance. And like I said, this fundamentally changes your source of truth. It is no longer in the instance, and now it is in your Git repository. And so you can keep everything exported on a daily basis. You can start getting into the habit of doing it even on every change. So that way you can start tracking your changes over time and seeing what you've changed within your application. That's the real power once we get long term and we start looking at Fluent and whatnot. But now we see our app is here. We have everything. Let's make sure, let's take a look at our table. So let's look at sysdb object, make sure we have everything, right? Make sure we have everything in our table. So there's our table. So we're good there. In our table, we've got our new field in there. We've got this auto numbered. All of that stuff came across just fine. And I've been doing this for a couple of years now and no real issues. There have been little things that have popped up here and there, but when you're not using Fluent and you're just using this as an export and it's mainly XML in your project, like we saw, there's really no issues because ServiceNow has been based off of XML since it's created. So that's really what I wanted to show you guys. So if you're kind of stuck using a PDI, and it can be frustrating, right? Because your PDI is kind of transient. It could be reclaimed at any time. You don't own it. But this is a really good way for you to be able to export that. And now since version 4.4.0 of the ServiceNow SDK, it does support globally scoped apps. So you can do that in a globally scoped app if you really feel the need to. Thank you all and take care.